Chess is one of the oldest and most recognized games in the world. It is an exciting game of strategy and planning, which is why it is seen as a symbol of intelligence. However, chess is easy to learn and can be enjoyed by anyone at any level. Chess is played on an 8x8 board with 64 squares and 32 pieces, and the game is all about checkmating the king. Once the king is in checkmate, which we'll explain later, then the game is over. So to start, let's meet the king. Even though the king is the most important piece in chess, it isn't the most powerful. The king can only move one square at a time in any direction. Here are the squares where the white king can currently move. Here's one move. Now the king could move here, and here's another king move. In chess, both players have identical sets of pieces. You have a king, and so does your opponent. Each player will take turns making a move until the game is over. Now that you've learned how the king moves, it's your turn to practice moving the king. In order to get better at chess, you will need to learn notation, which is often referred to as the language of chess. Every square on the chessboard has a name, which is actually just its coordinates. As we mentioned before, each column is called a. You've learned how to label each square on the chessboard. It's time to learn the notation of actual chess moves. Each piece has its own letter for chess notation. In this example, the king's letter is a capital K. With white to move, let's say the king is going to move to the E2 square. The way we describe that move is by saying the piece's letter first, which is capital K, then the square it moves to, E2. Remember, a piece always begins with a capital letter, and the square is always lowercase. So after the move, king E2, putting it all together, we say K, E2. Let's say black wants to play king to D7. In this case, it's the same idea. Capital K, lowercase D7. So piece, then square. K, D7. We will use the same idea for all the other pieces. The rook is a capital R, the queen, a capital Q, the bishop, a capital B. The knight, however, is a little bit different. Since the capital K is already used for the king, we use a capital N for the knight. For example, N E6. Finally, you may think that pawns are a capital P. In this case, pawns are only written as the square that they move to. For example, after the move E4, the notation is simply the square the pawn moved to, E4. Now that you've learned the language of chess, it's your turn to practice using chess notation. You've already learned how to move the pieces, and we've mentioned the idea of capturing. Let's talk more about capturing. In chess, when you capture a piece, you simply move your own piece to the same square as your opponent's piece and replace their piece with your own. The captured piece is then removed from the board. You don't stop before the captured piece, you replace it entirely. Let's watch this queen capture a pawn. Now let's watch this knight jump over one of its own pieces to capture the queen. Capturing pieces is a critical part of the game. However, you do not have to capture a piece if you don't want to. That being said, if you can capture more of your opponent's pieces than they capture of yours, it's going to be much easier to win. One question about capturing that we haven't answered is, how do you notate a capture? Let's say in this position that you plan on taking the black queen with your queen on b3. A good idea. You would write the piece that will capture it, in this case, the queen, so we use a capital Q. You then write an X, which means captures. And then you write the square where the piece gets captured. So after queen takes e6, we would write Q, X, e6. Here is one more capturing question. How do we notate a pawn capturing a rook and promoting to a queen at the same time? Does it sound complicated? Don't worry, it's just one extra step. We start by notating the capture. Remember, we mark a pawn with the file that it is currently on. In this case, the pawn is on the B file. So we would write a lowercase b, then we would write captures, which is an X, so lowercase b, X, and then the square that we capture, A8, so BX A8. So far, we have BX A8. Since we are promoting to a queen, you simply add to the end of your move an equal sign and then write which piece you are promoting the pawn into, which is usually the queen. So putting it all together, we would write B takes A8 equals queen. Now it's your turn to practice capturing pieces. Check is the word that is used when one piece is threatening to capture the other side's king. Check basically means look out, king in danger. Let's take a look at some examples of playing check. In this position, can you see how white can threaten to capture the black king? That's right. Bishop to f6 check. White's bishop puts the black king in danger of capture, so black must deal with this check. In the next lesson, we will learn the 3 ways to get out of check. In this position, black's rook can put white's king into danger. After rook d1, the white king is in check, and white must respond to this attack. Finally, in this position, black's pawn is ready to capture the white knight. Remember, pawns capture one square away diagonally. Can you see how white can escape the pawn's attack and place the black king into check? If you found knight to g6, great job. The knight escapes danger and now puts the black king into check. One final question is, how do we notate a check? It is pretty easy. All you do is add a plus to the end of your typical move notation. This means after writing ng6, you add a plus at the end. So it'll look like this, ng6 plus, meaning that black is in check. Now it's your turn to practice playing check.